GDP figures we're using to measure economic success are also measuring the rate at which we are barrelling towards climate catastrophe. Let's start with the science. Because if we take the global climate goal of reaching net zero by 2050, economic growth is still the elephant in the room. Because during that same 30-year period between now and 2050, the global economy is set to nearly triple in size. That means 3 times more production and consumption than we're already doing each year.
Indeed, the OECD have stated that if ever there was a controversial icon of the statistics world, GDP is it. It measures income but not equality. It measures growth but not destruction, and it ignores values like social cohesion and the environment.
So much of what we see within the public debate about public services and public investment posits economic growth versus well-being or versus environmental standards or other measures of public good. I don't think it should be either or. I think we need to consider both. We're measuring the wrong stuff. That means that the criteria that we're measuring outputs against is leading us to perverse incentives. Car crash is a fantastic thing to do to increase GDP because you need to involve garages, you need to involve lawyers, you need to involve insurance companies, you need to do all sorts of things that are not economically productive but do count from a GDP perspective.
It is very clear that a system that accounts for tobacco sales and the bets placed by gambling addicts but doesn't find any way to capture time spent raising children or the value of clean air is no longer fit for purpose.
Part of the growth delusion, this constant demand for GDP and growth, is that it will actually begin to trickle down to poorer members of society, both domestically and internationally. And yet it doesn't happen. So rather than keep on growing the pie, destroying the economy and the planet, wouldn't it be better to better share out the pie we already have within the limits of the ecology and the environment that currently exist?
And as Catherine Trebek from the Wellbeing Economy Alliance explains, this means recognising that the economy is a means to an end, not an end in itself. It's an economy which regenerates nature, an economy where collaboration trumps competition, an economy where activities and what organisations do is purposeful.
It's clear from these discussions the local people understand the need for change and have the appetite and many of the solutions to enable this to happen. The Green Jobs debate, for instance, emphasised the need for skills training, for skills for the future and the need to nurture local talent. They also were clear that any new green jobs should be secure, well paid with good terms and conditions.
This isn't an ideological debate. It's about how we frame the debate. And so reframing the debate through a well-being approach is one of the most effective ways that we can do that. The member for Salford spoke about my constituent, Dr. Catherine Trebek, who really is a leading thinker on this matter. She talks about cornerstone indicators of how we can measure progress in society. And the number of girls that ride a bike to school should be and can be an achievement of a society, because that sums up so many things that have to go right, and it brings so many benefits of all of those different things that lead to young girls being able to cycle to school, whether it's in this country or whether it's in a sub-Saharan Africa.
The wellbeing economy isn't just a brilliant idea, it's already being implemented in the UK and around the world. At local, national and international level beyond Westminster, the green shoots of a new economic paradigm fit for the age of climate emergency are already emerging. And in the short time that I have, it's impossible to mention more than a fraction of the researchers, campaigners, practitioners and others who make up the movement for a new economy designed to serve people and planet, from community wealth building to the Donut Economics Action Lab. The wellbeing economy is one example. It's being taken forward by the Wellbeing Economy Governments Partnership, a collaboration of so far 5 national and regional governments. In Finland, the world's youngest Prime Minister, Sanna Marin, heads up a government that's outspoken on the principle that economic growth is never an end in itself and well-being is not just an item of expenditure for public finances. In Iceland, indicators for well-being guide government decision-making. Scotland has a national performance framework centred around well-being, and with Greens now in government, we can expect even more leadership on the post-growth well-being economy. Wales has the first ever Wellbeing of Future Generations Act, a version of which many of us have been championing in this House as well. And New Zealand is home to the world's first ever wellbeing budget and a finance ministry that uses a living standards framework to shape all economic policy making.
And so I hope that today's debate is just the start of a long overdue conversation about what this really means in practice. from finding a new way of measuring the economy's performance away from the distribution-blind GDP and towards indices of well-being, through to ensuring the economy distributes wealth more fairly, provides stable and sufficient income, supports socially and environmentally useful enterprise, and importantly, an economy that ensures the ownership of economic assets is shared more widely and democratically with workers and communities.